Welcome in, Florida State fans, to a special edition of Locked On Seminoles. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. And today's opportunity is all about stats. Before Florida State takes on Georgia Tech, I want to give my projections for DJ Uiagalelei, Roydell Williams, Lawrance Toafili, Malik Benson, and other Florida State offensive players. It's kind of a fun exercise, and it's also a product of studying Florida State during the offseason, spring ball, fall camp, and hopefully leading up to the game, all the information used by the depth charts to come out as accurate as possible. So this is a no ad, this straightforward, here are the numbers kind of deal, only going to take a couple minutes of your time. Number one, let's start with DJ Uiagalelei. I've got him going 20 of 31 against Georgia Tech. I've got him at a modest total of around 230 yards. I think they'll be pretty conservative with the passing game. That number probably isn't going to shock anybody, but I also think that we have to be realistic. First game, new quarterback, Malik Benson's a transfer, Jalen Brown's a transfer, etc. They're going to have quite a few guys that come out here and play well, but at the same time, it's not really a situation where you should expect a ton of continuity. And then finally, they're going to run the ball too. So the offense, I think, is going to be more predicated towards the rushing attack, which I'll talk about in a second. So again, 20 of 31, that's pretty good. I got him with 2 scores and 1 pick. And I also have him with 230 yards. That's the passing game for him. I will come back to him, momentarily in the rushing attack, because he will be very key element to that as well. Moving to the receivers, I've got Malik Benson being the top guy for the Noles. This is probably in a different way than some might think. I don't have him with number 1 with receptions for this game. I have him number 1 with yards. There's a difference, and again, I'll explain momentarily. Number 1, 4 catches for 81 yards and a score. I think by and large, Georgia Tech is going to try to bracket coverage him. They're going to either use a linebacker or a safety in addition to a corner to make it difficult. And that's fine. Florida State has enough talent. Maybe it's Kentron, maybe it's Hakeem, maybe it's Kyle Morlock, whatever. Second and third options against the zone defense are key. Younger quarterbacks usually struggle against zone because they want to see something pre-snap, stick to it. Guy beats his man, throw it. A to B, very, very simple. That's why zone defenses murder a lot of young guys, especially at the NFL level, where they execute it better and you see very high pick totals. DJ's a senior. Actually, he's a graduate student, a fifth-year senior. That won't bother him quite as much. If I'm surprised and they go man-on-man coverage the whole day, my stats for Benson and these other guys will be 100% different, because I don't think they can do that against Florida State from start to finish. They would give up 300 yards passing and like 3 touchdowns. I just don't think they have enough of it, because they would give up too many big plays. They might have a decent passing percentage they allow, but the chunk yardage plays against Florida State's offense would be really, really bad. So again, I got Malik going for 81 yards and a score, but I think he'll have like a 50 or 60 yarder. Catch a couple of screens, some other passes underneath, that kind of deal. And then he's going to have 1 big play, whether it's a bust, whether he wins a 50-50 ball, whatever it is. DJ can certainly sling it down the field. So Benson I have with number 1 player with yards. The most receptions, I've got Ja'Kai Douglas. They're going to have to give up something. Zones, it can be anybody. It could be the tight end. It could be the swing out of the backfield to a running back like Roydell, Toafili, etc. All those are certainly options. But I think Ja'Kai, another guy that's a graduate student, another guy that's been through the system, had a big game last year. So I believe that probably the entire staff's going to be like, if we're going to mix it up, let's go with the guy that's proven. He had 115 yards last season against Pittsburgh. I think he'll be the guy that leads in receptions. A lot of underneath stuff. They're going to play soft zone, in my opinion. Again, if I'm wrong about that, all these passing numbers are going to be totally different. Maybe a lower percentage, but the chances of catch and run for big yards goes extremely high. Ja'Kai, I've got 6 catches for 52 yards, no scores. He'll be more important in setting up third down and manageables, as well as catching some third down passes. 4th guy, and I think this is the most important guy for a second or third option, Kyle Morlock, and really the tight ends overall. It could be West or somebody else, and they could do a million different things. Landon Thomas might even play some. I don't know how they're going to do it. They have more talent at tight end than some give them credit for, probably even myself going through the spring to now and what they've talked about. Morlock's a guy that has some ability to make plays after the catch. He's a good football player. Had 19 catches last year. He can move the chains for you, and I also think he'll be a red zone threat. And that's why I got him 3 catches, 32 yards, and a score. So the 2 touchdowns that I have for DJ, one will go to Benson, one will go to Morlock. Just my opinion. Now, as for the other player that I think is going to be important, I still think at some point this year, Hakeem Williams has to emerge. I don't know how many balls he's going to get thrown to him, how many Kentron's going to deuce. Obviously, Jaylen Brown, he's in the starting lineup. He'll have a couple of catches, but I think they could all have 1 to 2, and they're going to rotate a lot of those guys. I don't have an opinion on who's going to have the most on that. I never came to a conclusion, but between those younger guys combined with the older guys, half dozen catches or so, 70 yards, something like that, and they'll be a part of it. Again, playing zone, you got to just find the guy. You can't worry about just progression. You got to find grass, get in between players. It's very basic concepts that you can learn even in 8th grade. Florida State's players obviously are coached very well in this. It'll be interesting to see if DJ gets comfortable with a guy. You never know. That's dangerous, especially against zone, because you can have a player that's away from that guy jump a route. But again, he's a 5th-year student. I have a hard time believing he's going to make a lot of those errors. Moving over to the rushing attack, and remember, DJ is a part of this. I have 2 guys that I'm going to mention. It won't surprise anybody, although I think about 5 running backs will play, give or take. Toafili and Roydell Williams are going to be the main guys. I've got Toafili going for 15 carries, 105 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think he's going to pop one. I think that they will, by and large, do their best work, talking about Georgia Tech's defense, on 1st and 10, because they're going to be mixing up. They're going to take a lot of what I would call volatile chances. They don't have the ability from a depth perspective to consistently do what I'm getting ready to talk about. So they're going to change it based on their personnel. It'll almost be obvious. When Biggers is in the game, watch this player. He's the nose guard for the Ram 1 Rec. They can do more things. That is a 320-pound man. He is a 2-gap, try to shut you down in the middle guy. At 40 tackles he was credited with last season by college football or CFP stats. That's a really high number for a D lineman. Part of that is because they were on the field a lot and they gave up first downs, but that's still a high number for an interior defense lineman. Good for him, good player. When he's off the field, you'll see that rushing stats probably go up. Can't teach 6'6", 320. Toafili, Roydell, Cam, anybody that's in the lineup, because it doesn't matter. They will have a higher rushing total and average when Biggers is off the field. Second part of this, again, they're going to take chances, especially when Biggers is not in the lineup. You'll probably see them blitz and or show more aggressive fronts. Maybe bring up a safety to one side of the line, a linebacker on the other. That can get a negative play, but that can also cause somebody like Roydell to pop one for 35 yards. That's why I think Florida State's going to be successful. I have the team total, by the way, for rushing stats, just under 200 yards, 190. I almost went to 200. I went with 190. Last season, Tech gave up 221, so improvement for them, but still not very good. I have Roydell having a good game, not great, but a good game, 10 carries for 58 yards. I think that both backs will be over 5 yards a carry, and that's a problem for them. Beyond the rushing totals for individuals at running back, here's the most important stat, and it's probably going to surprise people when they hear this. I've got DJ going for 7 carries and 15 yards. And you're like, well, what's that mean? Never forget this. This is the most annoying stat in the history of mankind, in my opinion. In college, unlike the pros, sacks count against rushing totals for quarterbacks. Dumbest stat ever. So I'm going to give him 15 yards. It should be closer to 30. The point is still the same. 7 carries, 15 yards, 1 touchdown, and he'll have a couple other runs for first downs. He is not going to be dynamic in the backfield. It's, oh, there's a lane. They made a mistake with their rushing lane. I'm going to take off. He will have a couple of designed runs. He may have an RPO. You'll get flushed once, and he'll have a couple of quarterback sneaks. Those kinds of plays change things. He'll get sacked once or twice. It's just kind of common. But those kinds of plays change games. On the goal line, not many people are going to want to get in front of DJ Uiagalelei. It's still 6 points, brother. It's not the prettiest play, a 2-yard plunge, if you will, something of that nature. That's what I predict. Even if he doesn't get a touchdown, doing that at midfield on his 3rd and short sets up play action. It sets up runs and passes to the perimeter. Very important part of Florida State's totals as a team, both in yardage and on the scoreboard. So again, I've got 190 yards rushing, 230 yards passing for the Noles, 420 overall. If you did not see my predictions for the game as far as a total. Yesterday, I gave that on Friday. You can check that podcast out. But I just wanted to wrap this up before Florida State plays Georgia Tech. As I get ready to finish doing this pod, we're about 50 minutes or so from kickoff. So thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Enjoy the game. I'm going to have a little bit of a post-game show, about an hour and a half or so after the game. I want to accumulate the stats, think about what I saw, go through it from there. I will also have, in addition to that, kind of like this, how did I do with the stat predictions? What can we learn from it as Florida State moves forward? Again, first game of the year, it's one line. There is no combination, but you can still use the eye test as much as anything else. Want to talk to everybody about that, ask some questions in the podcast, and then again, we're just going to do stats again on a second pod that I'll do later. It'll take me a while to break it down. That's pretty calculated and it's pretty tedious. That one will probably be a late night pod here on the Locked On Seminoles podcast. So thanks once again, and I will see you later today.